Close, but no cigar for the Mountaineers on this night. West Virginia loses to St. John's, and Rick Pitino 79-73 in a game that WVU was in all the way. They fought. Rick Pitino gave them love for fighting and for overcoming all the adversity that everyone knows all about, but it didn't really matter if you look at the final score and what actually does count here. Again, St. John's wins at 79-73. This is our WVU basketball post-game show here on WVSN. I am Mike Asti, and I will now be joined by our Ethan Bock, who is coming at you from the WVU Coliseum. So, Ethan, 79-73, maybe closer than some thought this score would be. Although, if you listen to Rick Pitino, he knew this was still a tough place to play. It looked like the crowd was a little bit into this game because it's the first time Pitino's been there in a decade plus, and would have been maybe cool for Pitino versus Huggins, but you get Pitino versus Eilert, and West Virginia fought. But then you have foul trouble. Then you have Edwards in foul trouble. We talked about before that once he gets in foul trouble, that really can kill a team because they are not despite getting tons of free throw looks, they didn't hit enough of them to be able to win a game like this, even at home against a quality team. But St. John's has shown they can be vulnerable this year, but yet gets this big victory. So what's the story for you before we fully unpack this? What's the story for you from this game? What are your takeaways from this game? A close game. These don't count at all. And if you listen to Eilert, he's not willing to take this at all. It looked like he was kind of very, disappointed and frustrated that they're close but can't get these wins. It's kind of a moral win. Doesn't look like the fans are that mad about this result, but still a loss for West Virginia.
Yeah, I think the storyline that's been the whole early part of the season is just playing with the limited rotation. Eventually, that talk gets old after a while, but
Right.
in this case, St. John's played 11 guys against West Virginia's 8. So
Right.
Rick Pitino has a lot of depth on this team. And then, like you said, the biggest thing to me was this team shot 43 free throws, and they were playing at home, and they still just couldn't get over the hump and beat a team that is a borderline NCAA tournament team.
Yeah.
St.
Hit
John's
31 of 43
31 out of 40
for 72%, which is well below the bar, whether you're shooting in your backyard, at home, or even on the road. And they were at home in the friendly confines of the Coliseum, 72%.
Yep. And then this is the first game where we've really seen what this team can be like without Jesse Edwards on the floor in foul trouble, and it's not a good team, and
it's not good.
It's not a good team, and it's no. Everybody knows that this isn't fair to Josh Eilert and his staff. They've been put in a terrible spot, but without Jesse Edwards on the floor, you're relying too much on Quinn Slazinski and Kobe Johnson to make plays, and it's not a recipe to win games.
No, not at all. Ethan Bock, Mike Asti here, our WVU basketball postgame show. The Mountaineers lose 79-73. Again, a close effort, but you could certainly say they didn't take advantage of opportunities that were there. And even though this is a depleted roster and certainly not the team they would have had without the Huggins drama, maybe they still should have won this game as is, despite 11 versus 8, because 72% free throw shooting, if you bump that up to 80%, certainly 82, 3, 85%, you don't even have to be 90. You probably win this game, to say the least. And it still took St. John's hitting a big shot in the final seconds to be able to really pull away and secure what they are considering a big-time road win, even though West Virginia is down this year and now falling into a below 500 losing record at 3-4 on the year. But the oddity from this game compared to the other losses this year, and this even maybe includes the bye game loss, is West Virginia did have a lot of depth in scoring and still didn't get this victory. We talked before that usually when they lose, it's been one or two guys getting in double digits, and maybe Edwards gets in foul trouble and he gives you maybe 12 instead of the team needing him more 16, 18. And maybe other guys don't do enough. But in this game, like the Winds, you're seeing 5 guys flirt with double digits, 4 get there, 1 point away, and then you do see Zielinski getting 19, which is basically his capper. I mean, that's pretty much what you want out of him and what he gives you in the victories. 15 from Edwards, 14 from Johnson, 10 from Harris, and Neve at 9 and 1 away from double digits. 5 players in double digits scoring when you only got 8. You can't ask for much more, imagining that they could have even scored more if you had those free throws. But that's just a bit weird to me. That's probably part of Eilert's frustration that, like, basically, yeah, we should have hit more free throws. But again, it sounds like a broken record, but it's hard to ask for too much more out of certain players. That's just who they are.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to get a 30-point night from Harris. This is him.
Yep. Yeah, and Josiah, he's had a shooting slump the whole season, and he shot 3 of 4, which is perfect. But he was also in foul trouble, so he really couldn't get into a rhythm. Seth Wilson shot 0 for 11. He didn't make one single shot. And then, like, there's just a lot of weird stat lines with these guys and their shooting tonight.
0 for 11. Yeah, that's not easy. 4 rebounds, but yeah.
Ofri Neve had 9 points off of 0 field goal makes. He made all free throws. So a lot of weird shooting slates tonight. But this was the most productive the offense has been this season. The most points they've scored in a game.
Yeah.
Shot 40% from the field, but just being able to get to the line was critical. Just even though they didn't make all their free throws, and if they made 7 of them, they win, or 7 more of them, they win. But just being able to get to that line, and even though they shot 70% from the free throw line, they were able to get 73 points on the board. It's just any way they have to do it with pretty much the 7-man rotation they're running with.
It does show like they can get themselves the free throw line, because obviously it's about the referees. But part of that in basketball too is being able to draw the call and get yourself there. They won half the battle, but just didn't hit the shots. And again, you would assume probably if Battle was there, if Kirkrisha was there, they would hit some of those shots. They would score some of these points. And then if you're losing a close game like this that comes down to a shot at the end, maybe it wouldn't be close. Maybe you'd be able to hit some shots towards the end. Maybe you would hit some free throws. And to be honest with you, if you want to have a glass half full take, because again, this is a depleted roster and they've dealt with drama and adversity, and Rick Pitino and opposing coaches probably sound like a broken record too, because it almost sounded like Pitino feels bad for Eilert in this team as well. And in his heart of hearts, probably knows if I faced the team that Huggins put together in May and June, this probably wouldn't have been a win the way we played, because West Virginia lost in most of these game categories. If we're talking assists, they got killed, rebounds, offensive rebounds. They did win in steals. The rest of them, though, blocks, turnovers, all W's for St. John's. And I would imagine Rick Pitino, after celebrating this, is going to go back to the drawing board and say to his guys, we won and dominated in most of the categories we want to win in. They missed free throws despite getting to the line, and we barely won this against a depleted team with 8 players. So they won, but I would imagine a St. John's postgame show would probably not be celebrating this victory and kind of figuring they got to work on some things. They've already lost a couple games this year. But back to the Mountaineer frontier, did Eilert say anything, or did any of the players say anything, or even Pitino again, about their takeaways from this game, or what they saw in this game, or even from Josh Eilert's perspective, what can be done? Because we're saying they were in it despite losing categories, but they missed free throws. Do you just get back to the gym and just chuck shots, or what do you do? That it's almost the worst way to lose, because it's back to fundamentals and you're at the major college level.
Yeah, on the St. John's side, Rick Pitino, he was joking, but he was probably being serious at the same time and saying that his team's not going to run away with games, especially on the road this season. He said that's just not how his team is this year. So that's on the St. John's side, but Josh Eilert, it's more so just being able to get these guys to just pretty much take advantage of the rest they can get during the game. And just some of these guys getting out of shooting slumps like Seth Wilson and Josiah Harris, for example. But he feels like once once 7, 8 of that rotation right now can get clicking at the same time, and you bring back Krisha and potentially a Cook and Battle, that this team can be in a better position going into conference play.
Do you feel like it's accurate to say that this game is maybe more of an indication than even all the other games this year, that if they had more depth and even the players that are out with suspensions or waiver denials, that it was more evident of a problem in this game? Like if you had one or two of those guys, they would have been able to win this game, even with issues, not even worrying about what happened with Bob Huggins and the team that he put together that never got on the floor.
Yeah, easily. I would argue that 3 out of the 4 of their losses, if they have Krisha or Battle or Cook or even some of the guys way back when they were on the team,
sure,
that there's the only game I look at that I don't think they win still is SMU, and that's just because SMU held West Virginia to 22 points in the second half in that game in Fort Myers. But they could have beat Monmouth with those guys. Could have beat Virginia.
Definitely could have beat Monmouth, right? Yeah.
And then I think they beat St. John's here at home with 43 free throw attempts.
Right.
Many teams don't lose that battle. So this team's playing hard. As much as I say they're not a good team, they're playing hard. They're staying in games. They haven't been blown out.
Yeah.
But if they have they're just missing pieces.
They're kind of fun to watch, dare I say. I mean, they're just because you see how much these players care, and yet it's just not enough. This is a perfect example of the talent not being there, and that's not a hit at these guys either, because as we talked about before, many of these guys were supposed to be bench players on a team that some thought could make a dark horse Final Four run. Now they're starters with other guys that were supposed to be at least part of this crew for this year after the drama, not able to be on the floor in Krisha and Battle. And this is just the result that if Edwards gets in foul trouble, you're done. If Wilson doesn't get out of a shooting slump, you're done. If you miss free throws, you're done. If you don't win the rebounding battle, which they've struggled to do this year and didn't in this game, you're done. I mean, it's just check, check, and check. Yeah, this game was closer than some would have thought if you lose all of that. But at the end of the day, if you lose all of that, you're just not going to win. Ethan Bock, Mike Asti here, WVSN. Ethan's game recap is over there. Our post-game coverage is over there, as well as on our YouTube channel and throughout social media. Now, before we get to Pitt, because that won't be easy by any means either, and I feel like the lack of depth is going to be a problem in that game too. That'll be Wednesday night. I'll actually be at the Coliseum with you to double up our coverage, and we'll see what the Mountaineers can do in that game, because they're not going to be predicted to win, safe to assume, before the odds are even officially out there. But everyone's seen the Jose Perez tweet and kind of trying to rub it in and talking about it being personal for him, even though he's on Arizona State and didn't play in this game. So I'm not sure what he really got out of it as a win for him personally. But you look at that scenario, and then there were even kind of some subtle messages, whether it be from West Virginia coaches or even it looked like the graphic throwing Battle up there. And obviously this Big 12 Big East thing was kind of called a battle, and that plays off of the name of the player that is losing out on NCAA waiver denials. What are your thoughts on just all of that? Any updates on Battle? And then just, do you have thoughts on Jose Perez, who just could not stay quiet in a game he did not play in?
Yeah, Jose's an emotional person. He likes to kind of stir the pot. He knows what he was doing on Twitter, but Steve Masiello, St. John's assistant, that was his old Manhattan coach that got fired.
Yeah. Right.
Causing all of this for him to go to the portal, get denied at WVU, now at Arizona State. So I understand him showing love to who he called his father figure.
Right.
He's close with Coach Pitino as well, but he knows what he was doing, stirring the pot with that tweet.
Yeah, and it's just funny because he was rescued from that Manhattan situation when he had a coach fired that kind of had a rug pulled out from under him and then got denied, but was rescued by Huggins at West Virginia. And then it's not West Virginia's fault that Huggins had what happen. And then after that, Jose Perez no longer there, and there's many rumors and speculation on what went down there, whether you believe the study hall rumor or not. But yeah, it's a lot. For some reason there's now a hatred from Jose Perez to West Virginia that is just humorous and semi-ridiculous. But yeah, he couldn't. I get the love for the coaching staff, and I get that. The hatred for West Virginia, I don't get as much, but we'll let it be if he possibly can, but I don't think he can. But,
yeah, but as far as updates on Battle, Cook, Josh Eilert expects to hear about a Cook and his whole situation. Yeah. They're waiting on hearing doctor opinions still, so he keeps using the word soon. So I would assume you either hear by the Pitt game or the Drexel game.
Okay.
Within the
doesn't feel like out for the year then, because that's what I thought initially, and we obviously keep getting these reports prior to games that he's out, but Eilert doesn't sound like a guy who's saying this is out for the year.
The fact that he feels optimistic, I think, in that a Cook can return this year. But that's still not out of the window. There could be a chance doctors say he can't play. So
sure.
And it's the same thing with Battle. They're at the point now where they have to go Tez Walker situation or Aziz Bandango from Cincinnati, where they get the threatened lawsuit to the NCAA, and then they'll find additional information. So that's going to be another thing.
It can work, though.
So.
I mean,
it can work.
It can work. The NCAA sometimes it just caved and like, we don't care that much. Yeah, that can work. But then you almost get into the whole. Well, I guess it's still very, very early into the season, but you almost get into the whole Aaron Rodgers thing. Like, what are you coming back for? What are you doing? It's over.
Yeah.
They keep clipping off losses here. It's going to be pretty soon of what are you coming back for, especially if there's eligibility next year. But Battle can learn anything from Jose Perez. That doesn't mean you ever play for the team, and that doesn't mean anything about what the future will hold. So when Bob Hogan's got on the phone with Jose Perez and said, "I'll rescue you," I don't think anyone would have predicted he never would play a game for West Virginia 2 years later. That's the case.
No matter what, Josh Eilert and his staff should fight for Raekwon Battle to play this season. They're coaching to stay next year. Even if that means they're not going to be at the top of the Big 12, which right now they won't be. But just you have to fight for Battle to play, because if not, and let's say Eilert's not here next year, then Battle could easily just transfer and be a graduate transfer and go wherever he wants. It's the same exact situation as Jose Perez.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And yeah, 100% wouldn't fault him for that if that is the case. But yeah, if you're Josh Eilert, and based on what Ren Baker said in terms of the evaluation, he's obviously going to open up this search at the end of the season, and Eilert could be a candidate depending on how this year goes. But based on how Ren Baker has acted with Neil Brown and now welcoming him back, and who knows, maybe it's even more than 1 year if you listen to Ren Baker off of this 8-4 season after the prior 4 years were nothing really that was impressive. It's not like Ren Baker's out there saying it's NCAA tournament or bust. I mean, he could maybe see something in Eilert in this staff kind of galvanizing this team, and if they would somehow win 16 games or 15, or even if they miss tournaments, but they're fighting in there and they're an NIT team, or even if they miss out in the NIT, but they're on the verge of it by a game or two, maybe he would say, hey, that's obviously not good, but if you counter all the adversity and losing Battle and Kirk Krisha and all these things, he clearly maybe will weigh all those things. He did it for Brown. He may do it for Eilert. And maybe that would at least give Eilert one more season. And as we both talked about, the goal has to be to just get into normalcy, whether it's a coaching search or Eilert and his staff staying on. And that means you go into the spring and then you work for the next season, and you do it with the expectation there's not going to be 16 or 17 obstacles that are just going to ruin all the work you did the prior week, and then have you scrap it and do it all over again. You can operate like a normal basketball program and then see the real value of WVU basketball, whether it be an open search or carrying on with this staff, who absolutely, I don't think there's another staff in the country having to deal with as much as this staff. And it's not even just Eilert. It's all the way through that this staff has had to deal with. But 8 players and a talent differential, when you're in foul trouble and you miss free throws, there's almost nothing you can do. And it's almost amazing they were in this game, but they do lose it. Now, before we let you go here, Pitt is coming up. Pitt did lose to Missouri recently, but they've been very good most of the year. The schedule has been a little more difficult recently, and they've been kind of exposed. They're not dominating like they were off of an easier schedule to open up the season. But there's depth there. There's talent there. People are calling them a tournament team. They usually don't start hot. They're starting hot this year. Jeff Capel had his best season at Pitt last year, and it feels like he's now really in his footing as a Pitt head coach, and he's not going anywhere. He's not dealing with the pressure that Eilert and company are dealing with. What do you expect out of that game? What do the Mountaineers need to do in that game to have a chance? Because they've now proven they can play with a team that's deeper and has maybe more talent than them against St. John's. This could be a recipe here that you turn on the film and say, hey, you hit these free throws. Maybe they're better than you, but you can catch them and get a victory and get an upset on this given night. And they also will be at home on Wednesday night against Pitt.
Yeah, Pitt's clearly the better team. Like you said, they should make the NCAA tournament again, depending on how they do in conference play. But I'd say the biggest thing to me is West Virginia has been so close to stealing games, whether that's Virginia, whether that's St. John's.
It feels like one could be coming, and that would be the biggest one all year. If they're having a bad year, to get that one would be a big deal.
It feels like one's coming. They're gonna have they should have a good crowd. It's the backyard brawl,
right?
Potential black jerseys coming back as well from 2010.
They've been teased. They're looking like the Steelers against Pitt.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Pitt is much better team. It's pretty much the same build with Blake Hinson, and then transfers with Leggett and Austin, and freshmen in Carrington. So they have a similar build to last season. So
very, very underrated transfer class too, because they lost
underrated.
Cummings and company from last year, but they just clicked and rebuilt that team, and no one really talked about it at all. A lot of the conversation was West Virginia's transfer class before the Huggins drama. Pitt did some work, and they're getting the results out of that. But yeah, it also does kind of feel like it almost feels like Pitt's due to be caught, and West Virginia's due to catch somebody. I'm not predicting it, but that's what it kind of feels like a little bit.
Missouri's not that great of a team as they were last season.
Right.
But Pitt only hit a couple of field goals in the final 9 minutes in that game, and I think both of them were Blake Hinson. So at times they're a very one-dimensional team, and then it's very similar to West Virginia once they lose Szynski or Edwards off the floor. Is how can Pitt answer without Blake Hinson if he got into foul trouble? So that's going to be an interesting matchup.
Is that the plan? Try to get him in foul trouble, just be all in his face.
You got to do something. West Virginia has to find something to take advantage, because Pitt's depth similar to St. John's, where you can have 10, 11 guys out there if you throw in the Diaz-Graham twins or Federico. So you can rotate 9 guys easily with that team. So Pitt definitely should take care of business next Wednesday. But like we said, it seems like they could get caught. And West Virginia is also due to steal a game from a Power 6 program.
Yeah, and it also feels like, obviously the vibes aren't great based on the drama in the season that's happening now for the Mountaineers, but if you get blown out to Pitt, even though they're a much better team that did not deal with drama, that would just be another pop to the balloon. Like, everyone knows they're not as good and they're probably going to lose this game, but that would deflate the fan base even more. And you're looking at Kirk Risha coming back, a few days later, less than a week later from that, after the suspension will finally be up. So that'll be a kind of a down in the dumps mood that maybe he could still ignite something. Now, think of it this way too. You get a big upset victory against your rival at home. Then you get your best player coming back off suspension 2 games later. Maybe then you could try to save the season and go on a little bit of a run before you close out the year and get into conference play. Obviously, they're behind the 8-ball wins-loss wise here at 3-4, and they already lost a bye game, and they've lost some games they otherwise shouldn't lose if you're normally the West Virginia Mountaineers at full strength and you didn't deal with what they've dealt with. But that's one way to kind of save the year or show Ren Baker, if you're Josh Eilert and company, we can win big games, we can save the year, and we've not lost this team. If they play hard, it does appear, to the coaching staff's credit, that if I was an AD evaluating, I may still do an open search because I want to test the value of the program, but this team has not quit on Eilert and the staff. They're missing free throws that cost them this game, but they are playing hard. They are playing like they care. They are playing like people that want the staff to be there and want to power this on. And even Battle on Twitter is acting like he wants the staff to stay and he wants to get there, whether it be next year or this year. They're staying together, and that could easily not be the case based on everything that they've dealt with. So you have to give credit to the coaching staff for keeping this team together to this point. You wonder how much longer that goes, because we got several more months of this. And if they're, 7-12, that might be where everyone, tunes the coach out. And Brent already has a decision kind of made in his mind. But we will see. And that Pitt game is huge. Maybe could set the tone for New Year. I do think Pitt is able to be caught, and West Virginia maybe looking to catch somebody. We will see. Wednesday night at the Coliseum, the Mountaineers, the Pitt Panthers, the Backyard Brawl. It's going to be a rocking atmosphere regardless of what's been going on for both these two programs. They're both coming off tournament years, but obviously right now, ever since the tournament, dealing with two completely different situations. Ethan Bock, Mike Asti, the Mountaineers lose this one to St. John's 79-73. Rick Pitino gets the dub over West Virginia. Huggins there, but not taking the loss in this one. That does go to interim head coach Josh Eilert. And I do wonder if Rick Pitino and Bob Huggins went out after the game, or they had a conversation, or they went to dinner before the game. Huggins was there in attendance. That's just something that I would wish to be a fly on the wall for. And I hope the waiter or waitress got a big tip, and I can only imagine. But that'll do it for this one at the Coliseum. The Mountaineers do lose. They fought hard, and it's kind of a broken record that the fighting is all for naught.